All right. So for the next session, I think during the group discussions that we were having before, probably a lot of you are wondering what is actually happening in these other groups. Well, you're about to find out now for the next session. The first thing, we'll do it in 2 installments. The first thing is that each of the European social entrepreneurs will actually present their idea. So maybe these are their collaboration opportunities for you with these social entrepreneurs. So each one will have 1 minute to pitch. I will be sitting there again with my favorite tool, the iPad, to show the clock, right, to make sure that we stay within the 1 minute. After this, we will move to a panel discussion where we try to distill the learnings from all of the groups and bring them together. But before that, we're going to start with the 1 minute pitches of the Latin American social entrepreneurs. And I think, Ruben, if you're ready to start, is that okay? European, sorry. Thank you.
All right. I think most of us know what the impacts of cooking can be around the world in developing countries. Massive health impact, massive environmental impact, and major driver of poverty through fuel inefficiency. African Clean Energy, my family's company, produce the ACE-1 Ultra Clean Biomass Cook Stove, which is a stove that uses a ventilator to blow oxygen into the combustion chamber, which allows woody biomass to gasify. And you're burning gas, which is smokeless and incredibly efficient. We're now exporting this product from our factory in Lesotho to a number of African countries. We're doing this to a number of Asian countries as well, in Southeast Asia primarily. And we're looking for other markets to develop, especially in Latin America, where we currently don't have a presence yet. The stove, aside from being a cook stove, also has its own little solar nano grid. It has a solar panel that powers a battery, which has USB outputs and DC ports. So aside from ultra clean cooking, you've also got basic electricity for charging phones and LED lights.
Hello, everybody. My name is John van Dursen. I'm a Dutch guy. And I was wondering, why is the impact space, both investment and the impact in the ground, still so small? Let me show you something. It has to work, though. Aye. So this is something, you can't see it, but here's the logo that I've been working on. What would it be like? Here. So this is something we were just experiencing. Now, what if this would be your project in Uganda, or the impact created in Brazil or wherever? So with this app, you can create, or you can share the results of both quantifiable and the stories of your project within seconds to whoever's on the other side trying to support it. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Christian, I'm part of WeAct. One of the main problems of sustainability and climate change is that it's a rather abstract problem. And even though we have a very high awareness of it, we don't normally feel compelled to act upon it, especially on a personal level. So at WeAct, we actually bridge this awareness action gap through our behavior change programs, which we call the WeAct Challenges. The WeAct Challenges are actually team-based competitions which combine gamification with team dynamics on our online platform. The main purpose of these programs is actually to engage the participants to try out a sustainable lifestyle and understand the advantages of it. So far, we've actually done more than 20 challenges with over 4,500 participants, which have done over 300,000 sustainable actions. So if you know of an organization that would like to engage their stakeholders on sustainability, please contact us. Thank you.
I thought the other guy was going to pitch. Seems like he gets scared. Muy buenas tardes. My name is Geronimo. I'm the Chief Inspiration Officer at Euphoria. Our mission is to turn change-making into the desired lifestyle of our generation. We started off as a bunch of students, and we were just frustrated by the fact there's so many good intentions of young people and so little action. So we started experimenting and developing plenty of different ways to engage our generation, to get them out of the into an active mode. We won plenty of awards for that from a show cover, the Economic Forum, UNESCO, etc. And at those forums, we started meeting business people, and we realized those people have exactly the same problem. They need a kick in their butt. So what we started doing is designing new executive education programs where we connect managers with young people so that both learn from each other to become the leaders we need in the 21st century. What we're doing now is we built a Train the Trainers program to engage more and more executives and young people in spreading our approach across the globe. So if any one of you is interested in learning from us, please say hi. Thank you.
I think this is the first time that I had 4 one-minute pitches and I didn't once have to raise the clock. So they all finished about 1 second before, so that's excellent. All right, so for the next session, we will hear from the group moderators. It's a bit of a panel discussion, which is why the tables have been coming here. The panel will be moderated by Martin Bird, and he will be joined by Fabio, Stefan, Elfried, and Ernst to share the learnings from the group discussions. So Martin and all of the moderators, please come forward.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your patience. And before the day is over, our big challenge is to hear what happened in the other groups, so that when we leave, we know exactly that we did not miss anything. And so for the next few minutes, we will talk to each of the moderators and to see if we can think and then prepare to ask questions about social entrepreneurship, about the difference between social missions organizations that are social enterprises, like we saw today. But I think that we were very fortunate also to see a social entrepreneurial organization like El Sistema that is about impact, but it's not a social enterprise. So if we want to change the world, social enterprise is one way, but creating movements is another way. Sometimes you use government money. And I think that the presentation was so good that it put the criticism right there, so that we can all learn, so that we can all reflect, and so that we can all overcome our own limitations. So thank you very much for this opportunity. And I'm just going to start here with Ernst, asking him if he can give us 5 minutes, introduce himself, what are you doing here, and also tell us about your group, and then go ahead and introduce, each moderator will introduce the other one. So in 20 minutes, 5 minutes, we will have a very good picture of what happened in the groups, and you will be writing down your questions, provocative, things that people are not talking about, things that people are forgetting, so that we can have a meaningful day. So Ernst, thank you very much.
Great, thank you. First of all, I haven't heard it today, so I got to be saying that I think this is an amazing event, and it's fantastic what the organizers and the hub and everyone has pulled together. Just after lunch, I was talking with Lutz about conference fatigue and how people, move from event to event, and it's very much often the same. And the hub and this event here always manages to pull together a format and an event that is exciting and fun and great to be at. So thanks very much for having me here. I come from an organization called the Humanistic Management Center, and what we're doing is essentially trying to move many of the elements that we find in social entrepreneurship into the mainstream. And advise, can you hear me up there as well? Right, okay. And support through research, teaching, and advisory work, traditional mainstream business to transform towards a way where we're making more meaningful use of this instrument that we have in market economies and enterprise. But I do want to talk mainly now, or most of it, about the panel that we were doing on the social side. The panel one, I think it was the first one, and what the challenges were and opportunities were that emerged there. I'm starting with the challenges, and they were, on one side, it was seen that network access is a big challenge. So I think this is something that you guys are addressing here very strongly, and that needs to happen more, and that the people in the panel felt that is a challenge that is very strong in many places in Europe as well as in Latin America, is to gain access to networks. Secondly, one challenge that is more specific to Latin America is the missing middle class. So the social structure is a challenge in Latin America that is less strong in Europe. Reaching out to customers is probably a challenge that both face, for pragmatic reasons, stronger in Latin America, it was felt. And simply missing knowledge was another strong point that was there, and this on several levels, on the level of how we're doing business education, but also on the level of awareness and knowledge on systemic challenges that we face as a global community, and what entrepreneurial answers there may be, and which are already existed and proven and tested. So the general question of a lack of knowledge on social entrepreneurship and the challenges that are being addressed through social enterprises. How to motivate people, I think that was seen as a challenge, and it was contextualized with saying that there is, to some degree, a high opportunity cost, it was said. So that was clearly a business student who was formulating this challenge. A high opportunity cost for the individual to actually start or look or try to have a career in the social entrepreneurship space. Now, on to the opportunities, because they are fortunately bigger and greater. And I think two key terms that emerged there were collaboration and cooperation. So I think the opportunities lie in, and this has got a transformational dimension also on a systemic level, that social enterprises by nature are opting for collaborative and cooperative working modes rather than sticking in the strictly competitive mindset. And so these mental models matter, and social enterprises have a huge opportunity by being built on a cooperative and collaborative mindset. Another opportunity that was seen is the human spirit. So the fact, and you know, this is phrased in multiple ways through Generation Y and through organizations that are springing up, supporting support structures for social enterprises. But the very fact that wherever you go, whoever you talk to, there's admiration and there's a desire to do something meaningful with what we do during our working hours. I mean, we spend anything between 8 and 12 hours a day doing something, and we much prefer doing something in that time that actually has a purpose and that makes sense and that we can believe in and unite behind. So that is seen as a strong opportunity to tap into this human spirit that is so strong and that is oftentimes not seen as respected sufficiently in traditional working environments. A clear opportunity that arises from social entrepreneurs was seen is to strengthen the local economy. So to have a less of a dependency of few big actors, but to have all these entrepreneurial organizations that spring up on a local level, addressing very direct and imminent challenges that exist in the communities. And of course, overall, the opportunity and effect that was formulated, and I think that is also coming to the impact side, and that'll be the end. I haven't watched when I started, but I think I'm about there. Is the transformative power, right? So the opportunity that we have, or probably the biggest opportunity that stems from social entrepreneurship, is the transformative power, the fact that we can prove concepts of how we make better use of enterprises, of market mechanisms than we do in the mainstream. And this proof of concept has the potential to generate a huge transformative wave for the mainstream of business, because we have to reach the mainstream of the business with what we're doing as well. Thanks very much. Stefan.
Thank you, Ernst. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Yeah. My name is Stefan Cappolo. From Switzerland. I work here for Active Philanthropic Impact Investor. So I'm in touch on an almost daily basis with entrepreneurs. Our goal is, the goal of our foundation, the ELEA Foundation for Ethics and Globalization, is to invest in entrepreneurs in order to fight absolute poverty with entrepreneurial means. And we do so in emerging economies in Asia, India, Sub-Saharan Africa, and Latin America. And we work in 3 thematic areas. One is professional skill building. So this is technical training, not primary school training, not secondary school education, not university education, but really skill training. The second part is global value chains, so agriculture, trade. And the third area is new technologies, mainly focusing on IT and renewable energy. I'm with ELEA for the past 4 years now, responsible or overseeing the whole investment process, so from sourcing, due diligence, investing, coaching, and then exiting our entrepreneurial assets. Wow, where to start in our discussion? Funnily, there were some things that were said as they are opportunities, but at the same time also challenges. So we had things that came up several times. I think one that also touched me last week when I read the newspaper about the German parliament discussions is the mindset thing. Entrepreneurial, people who think entrepreneurial are, at least in Central or Western Europe, Switzerland, Germany, there are not that many. Not everybody in here, maybe in here it's a little bit different, but when you go out on the street, you don't see every second person to be an entrepreneur. Why is it like that? If you're in the Anglo-Saxon world, basically everybody has tried something and it's cool to be an entrepreneur and to have started something. And also failing is being perceived as something, you don't need to have it necessarily on your CV, but at least no one says, oh, you're a loser. And this is something that is here, and that was also discussed in our group, that is here in Switzerland, probably also Germany, a big thing, that you have a stigma once you have tried to create and to start something by yourself. So this is something we have to overcome, that we encourage not only young people, but people who want to start something by themselves to actually try it. And even if they fail 2, 3, 4 times, to still believe in them and actually make sure that they will try it even a 5th or a 6th time. So that's the mindset part. Connected to the mindset part is also a little bit the education part. And we heard before from the business school. So all business schools, the top business schools, they now all claim that entrepreneurship is important. Did you actually, and I just pick an example, the FT MBA ranking, for instance. It's just an example, but 40% of the whole ranking stems from the financial impact the students have due to the MBA, right? So if someone starts up a social enterprise or an enterprise as such, he or she doesn't get to earn the same amount as if he goes into consulting or if in an investment banking job. But that means the school doesn't rank that high. So the incentivation of, for example, such a ranking is, in my opinion, not right. So if we could change the mindset and the education of people, that at least is what I took out of our discussion, then we could contribute a lot to actually more entrepreneurial initiatives, especially here in Europe, but probably around the world. Other things that have been said in terms of opportunities is thanks to technology, thanks to being better connected, there are networks that can be tapped into, like the network here. There are many more conferences today. It's easier to talk. It's easier to exchange ideas. It's easier to learn about ideas. But then technology also helps, and we've seen these examples from Ilu Mexico this morning, or now from Ruben this afternoon, where we can actually provide solutions to people at the base of the pyramid. We have a market. I mean, the market has always been there, but now it's perceived as a market, and we actually, even the big conglomerates, they approach this market, Unilever, Danone, etc., Nestle. Trust has been said as an opportunity, debatable, but it's that once it has been built up, many of these people have been really disappointed. So once it has been built up, trust, it's actually an opportunity for an organization. And there are valid business cases out there. So today we have examples where we can look at and where we can learn from, and it's not like we're in a green field anymore, so there already something has been created. If we quickly switch to the challenges, communication and outreach is being said as a challenge. Finding reliable partners. Sometimes in some areas, probably that's not true for everywhere, macro conditions like the government situation, legal situation, bureaucracy, corruption. And then one thing that I also think is interesting, that there is often a too big focus on the technology and on the product side, and less on what actually the market wants and needs. And maybe with that, I hand over to Fabio. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fabio Segura. For the last 8 years, I have been an investor of social ventures, or an impact investor. For the last 4 weeks, I manage the international programs of the Jacobs Foundation. Our mission is to increase the quality of life of youth and children in the developing world. In the world. We have 3 programmatic areas, or geographic areas. One is in Switzerland and Austria. One is in Latin America. Thank you, Martin. And one is in West Africa. From the discussion of the panel, I have a few comments. I think the idea that summarizes the groups that I worked with this morning is that idea of convergence. It was understood that many players in surrounding social organizations or social enterprises have common interests, more common interests than divergent interests. So connecting the dots, as some group put it, or finding those points of convergence becomes a challenge for those who are not managing it well today in terms of social transformation, but it becomes a huge opportunity for those who can dialogue different languages between the private sector, the government, and civil society. And it seems to have come out of the discussions that social entrepreneurs have the flexibility and they have the lean structures that allow them to move and shift between those roles where the private sector, big multinational companies, or government structures with the bureaucracy embedded in them oftentimes have a hard time converging. And so that's one of the big challenges when it's not done properly, but also it's a great opportunity for those who can see through those structures. In terms of value chain, which is going beyond the social enterprise or beyond the actual firm or the company, there are big challenges in terms of providing a service or a product that has a strong value proposition. For people in Latin America, that normally would be the base of the pyramid, that strong value proposition is a product or a service that increases their quality of life, that moves them forward in having a certain better livelihoods, if you will, or better either social well-being, financial well-being, material well-being. For people in Europe, that would mean having a collective way of dealing with a common problem that perhaps is at a different level than basic needs, but that still is as important in terms of human development. In terms of the value chain, then, it becomes a challenge to social enterprises to provide sufficient evidence of the impact created to those who are willing to pay for it. Be it social investors, be it foundations, or be it consumers or clients. Providing that evidence that this is needed, providing that evidence of the impact created, and at the same time having a business that is viable financially seems to be a difficulty that most social enterprises are struggling with. We heard from the groups about blended models. We heard from the groups about serving different consumer segments with different value propositions. And we heard from the groups about how do you mix an idea that is in essence that of social transformation with that which is in essence a provider of a product or a service at a viable price to those who are willing to pay for it. And social entrepreneurs and those who are working with models, with business models that are intended to change realities both in Latin America and in Switzerland seem to be better suited for that than our counterparties at the government or in large corporations. Lastly, we talked about public goods and governments as a broader sphere of challenges and opportunities. On one hand, public goods that are missing are awareness of a need. Even those who we strive to serve in Latin America through our products or services oftentimes are not aware of a long-term damaging outcome of, for example, to put it very concretely, a cooking stove. We heard a pitch today. Those who are cooking with wood every day not often are seeing that the long-term effects on health are detrimental or is not high on their priority list. If an increase in income occurs in these households, probably the first thing that is going to be invested on is not going to be a change in this system. So that lack of awareness of the benefits of the products and the goods that social enterprises can create is a lack of a public good. There also the opportunity becomes very clear for those social enterprises that are able to connect with those organizations that have converging interests in making that public aware of those benefits. There we step to governments. We also step to certain businesses that are for profit and that are interested in having healthy communities, because they are an essential part of their supply chain, or because they are an essential part of their long-term business viability. And seeing through those structures where convergence can be articulated seems to be an enormous opportunity for social entrepreneurs. Last but not least, government in essence plays and should play a role in the whole value chain of creating change. It cannot be up to businesses or even social entrepreneurs to take over the role of the government. And although this role can be politicized and it can be tweaked by different varying conditions, as we've also seen in the presentation beforehand, there's got to be always a way of articulating the business model in a way that the government can play its role and necessarily comes in and steps in with the demand for services or with the regulation that is needed in order for those social businesses to flourish. And so with this, I leave it and pass it over to my colleagues and continue with the conversation.
Well, hi everybody. My name is Elfis Torres. I am the CEO of Fundes. Fundes is an organization that it's part of the Viva Trust family, and we basically Fundes itself, it's a social enterprise, so we identify a lot with the sessions we have this morning and also in the discussion in the breakout sessions. We basically, in a nutshell, we worked with all those interested in working with the small firms in Latin America, particularly in Latin America, and that means that could be large enterprises, governments, international development agencies that need better off small firms, more competitive ones. And I will stop there because my boss is having a session shortly, so he will explain more in detail what we do. Okay, like this. I think it's yeah. Can you hear me? Okay. And about my breakout session. You know, we all heard in the morning what Carolina Cruz from Colombia told us about his initiative. And John Van Dursen, he just mentioned the app that he just developed. And of course, the challenge of the breakout session was to discuss about the challenges and opportunities that these two entrepreneurs has in their different environments. And of course, what we learned, and Nell told us this morning, he actually opened the session with this, that Latin Americans probably, they are looking for markets, identifying needs, and probably in Europe or elsewhere in developed world, they probably are working environments that work better, markets that work better, and probably they are facing different challenges. And of course, as they explain their challenges and opportunities, of course, we also saw that. Well, Carolina in Bogota, well, you know, she faced a lot of challenges in terms of finding a business model, finding a focus, even facing the challenges that the environment in Colombia well has, like even security or dealing with different stakeholders, the government, the municipality, the private sector. So she has her own environment, and it is tough. On the other hand, well, John, well, he himself has started up several initiatives in his career. He is actually one of those that they call serial entrepreneurs, because he has developed other things, but he's also facing things because the app involves technology, involves connectivity, and we all know when we want to work in other environments where we don't have connectivity, or where technology it's not as affordable as in the developed world, well, that's a concern. But after we discussed these challenges, that it surprised me that when we hear the stories of an entrepreneur, the ones that are hearing or are observing, for us it's easy to identify the challenges. We never thought immediately of the opportunities they have. So we have to struggle a little bit to come up with the opportunities. But so everybody immediately identify the challenges. So, and it's not necessarily bad. It's not just for criticize the ventures of the entrepreneurs, but it's easy, probably because we are used to thinking that way. For them, I think it was a very interesting exercise, because people from other regions identify things that they probably haven't seen. But we also identify common problems or common challenges, and I will try to summarize. First of all, it's a thing that, and this is something that it comes with from John, and he said that they are facing what they call the pioneering gap. They are starting a firm and startup, and they are, facing short-term reality. So, and in practice, this means that probably they are sometimes losing focus because they have an idea, they have an assumption, and suddenly it appears a client or a fund or a founder that has another idea, but it's, they think, well, why not? And that why not, it probably lose the focus of what they really wanted at the beginning. So this is something that all entrepreneurs at this stage face, and they call short-term reality. And of course, it involves, focus and, evaluate priorities. And this is something that it was very, very common in the two cases, even though they were working in different realities and environments. And then when we get into that point about assumptions, we also learned that they probably started the thing with an assumption that probably they have to be shifting as the market also reacts. So they have probably, and this is, we probably have seen this in theory as probably what the people from the Lean Startup mentioned already, that you have to pivot your assumptions several times. And we've seen in practice with these two examples. And of course, it was a process and it was a common challenge. And of course, opportunities, there was a lot of opportunities. We had to ask to the members of the roundtable, to the breakout session, to look for opportunities. And it was, it was very nice to hear that in both cases they also, of course, identify new markets, new applications for what they were doing. And I would say that the exercise of analyzing challenges and opportunities also, come up with a lot of ideas so they can also improve their business model. So that's what I have to say.
Okay, a big round of applause for our moderators. While all of us were relaxing, they had to go through the work of summarizing what we all said in the groups. So right now, I'm just going to ask you to get ready with your questions. They have to be provocative and difficult. But first of all, Ernst, he said, watch out for social entrepreneurs. Don't get in the way of government. Don't alleviate the government's constitutional responsibilities. So I want you to say that. Are we here to change, or are we here as social activists to make sure that the government perform? I want to ask you, what is this? How many students, how many people involved with universities? And I actually heard the dean of the Oxford School of Business, Oxford University Said School of Business, saying it is not fair because we are training social entrepreneurs and we get punished in the rankings. Because by definition, a powerful social entrepreneur that graduates from Oxford University will not get a millionaire salary. And so universities are being ranked by the salary of their graduates and not by the impact of their graduates. What do you think about that? I want to ask you something. It was mentioned here, the mindset. What about this thing? Europe has a culture. The United States has a culture. South America or Latin America has a culture. For example, in the United States, society is debating whether there should be universal health coverage. But they do not debate about unemployment. If you have 7% unemployment in the United States, you better get ready to leave the White House. Europe has a high tolerance for unemployment, but a very low tolerance for health insurance. So I want your reflection on that. And finally, I want you to mention about the pioneer gap. What does a social entrepreneur do who really said to his girlfriend, I'm gonna invent this great solar kitchen. And comes a funder and said, yeah, nice idea, but I really want to do some nutrition. Do you think you can combine? This is the money for nutrition. You need us. So what do you do with the possibility of having funders dictate your innovation? So I want just very quick answers to that and then pass it on to the group. Okay, who wants to start?
Well, thanks, Martin. A very quick answer to the relationship of business and government. Right. No, I think we need to be very well aware that government matters strongly in these questions. And in my view, it depends very much on the kind of business that you're in. I've had a discussion once with a social entrepreneur building and operating schools. And to me, there are certain elements which is the task of government, and it's the job. It's a public job to provide schooling. So for me, this can only be a step towards then migrating those schools into the public hand, which is exactly what she is doing. There are other areas where I don't think we need too much governmental involvement. And so I think it depends on the kind of social problem or environmental challenge that we're addressing, whether the role of government, how big the role of government should be. I think one central point where government is necessary, or two, are on one side the whole regulatory environment. What are the tax implications of investing into a non-profit business, into a self-sustaining organization that is not profit maximizing but impact driven? So what are the regulatory questions that need to be addressed on one hand, and secondly, I think there's a government role clearly to play in, and they were getting back to the entrepreneur question, in educating and looking at higher education, but also primary, secondary education curricula, and what the content is and what we actually tell people what business is about, right? Because we shall not be surprised if we continue singing the old song that people in managerial responsibility will act accordingly. So government, I think, has got three areas, I would say. On one side, there's a question of what kind of problem do I address and how big should government's involvement in there be. I think that depends on what you're doing. Two things that don't depend on what you're doing is that there are regulatory demands regarding tax structures, regarding the whole investment side of putting money into these organizations, which is desperately needed. And on the other hand, the question of what do we educate on, what are curricula that are telling everyone that goes through a schooling system what business is all about.
So Martin, you're coming with your solar idea to me as a potential investor, and I should tell you that the solar idea is not so good and that you should actually move into nutrition. I'm not sure if we can make this case, but what we actually like to see, we as an investor, from entrepreneurs that approach us for funding, is actually if we see their learning path. So the first idea someone has is rarely the best idea. It might be a good idea, but it can also be that the solar idea is actually not what the investment community or the society actually thinks is the best idea. And it can well be that also investors are right. So that we think, because we know the market very well, we know the sector very well, and we think that there is more potential in the nutrition sector than in the solar industry sector. So what we look at is if we have an entrepreneur who has an idea, who comes to us and says, look, this is where we are today, and we have actually changed our business model 3 times over the past 4 years. And a person or an organization who is open to continuously challenge their own business model, their own idea, is someone we think we can really work together with. Because he or she is not as determined to their initial idea, but she's actually open to take advice from other people who might have good ideas as well. So I think the solution is that we have to sit together, and if you're open-minded enough to actually change your business model, I'm sure we can sign a deal, but if not, then you might need to search for another investor.
Raise your hands, who would like to have him as a funder? In the question time.
So Martin challenged the different conceptions society has in different parts of the world versus what is more important, what needs should we as a society be addressing and then rewarding or punishing our politicians accordingly. And I will bring that back a little bit to the topic of today on social entrepreneurship. I strongly disagree with the Maslow pyramid of needs. If it were true that this pyramid of needs really put and post a hierarchy of needs, we would not be supporting the system today. We would have to go and have everybody be fed and have a roof over their heads before we can do anything else on the higher aspirations. I simply disagree with this view. Societies are completely entitled to determine what is it that they choose as a priority in any point in time. And no need, in my personal view, and I'm not representing any institution with this view, is really more important than other. Even within basic needs, or what we understand as basic needs, I've seen an indicator by the Inter-American Development Bank that says, oh, this population in the Amazon has an unmet basic need. What is it? Where their floors are not concrete, they are dirt. It turns out that for that tribe, touching the floor with their bare foot is connecting to their Mother Earth. And so I do not believe on standard definitions of impact, and I do not believe that impact should be linear. It's not that we have figured out what progress is, and we're in a train track where some are behind and some are more advanced, and therefore we should push in every direction and go completing levels. Now we took care of social, let's take care of unemployment, and so on and so forth in a hierarchy. What I do believe is that societies should be asking themselves the question, what is it that for us is important? Having effective ways of getting that dialogue going and making a decision that reflects their cultural and political system that they have chosen for themselves.
Are you writing down your questions here? Easy questions will not be permitted.
Thank you, Martin. I hope this is the hardest question I have to answer. No, definitely. Well, I think that those rankings and the indexes that produce those rankings probably are wrong. But I won't bet that if we change the indexes in the case of that university, I won't bet that they will improve the rankings, because probably. And again, universities, even those universities that has social entrepreneurship programs, probably they have their own assumptions. And what we have learned today is, for example, and this is, I just learned from yesterday from Monica, that she studied engineer, and of course, I know that she studied from one of the largest universities in Mexico, and it's well known for its technical, quality, but not for their entrepreneurial skills. And she told us also that she was aware of the needs because she attended a course and she realized that in Mexico there was a need. So I don't know if the indexes change, they will realize that Oxford or whatever other university is the best in producing social entrepreneurs. I guess that there is a mix of things out there in the real world, in places like these, where people start to realize that there are needs that could be covered for a social entrepreneurship.
Very good. A round of applause for their brilliant organization. And now we have 5 minutes. So, quick, to the point. Who wants to shoot first? Yes. Here.
Yes, working. No? Yeah? However, you were talking about the partnership with the government, and I want to add also partnership with the private companies. And I was reading a couple of months ago an article about economists who were saying that basically social entrepreneurship, now I'm trying to be provocative, not really my opinion, was not really a real business, was more a challenging business, and the real business was coming just from the big companies who could finance some particular CSR policies. So my question is basically, how far can the partnership go to be still called social entrepreneurship and not just a little activity from a multinational company who want to make your reputation better?
Anybody? You can get that. Okay. We're going to wait because we only have 4 minutes. So that's one question, another question, and then we're going to get prepared to answer.
Okay, 2 questions. First question. This afternoon I saw only men speaking. Where are the women? Second, including myself now. Second question, you were talking about governments and big companies. Looking at what they are doing right now, running our planet close to the wall. We're facing climate change, and they are not able at addressing this. So how can you tell us that we should collaborate with them? We have to change them. We have to basically replace the big companies, and that's my question. Why can't we think bigger? Thanks.
So are you going to get that thing about not partnering with the enemy? Okay. Yeah. One more. Okay, there you go.
My question is regarding institutional formation for social enterprises. We know from economics that institution formation is very important in terms of the results that you can achieve. So my question is, when we are appropriating the institutional formation from enterprises that perhaps have not been so successful delivering social value, what type of risk do we get into, and do we need to think about another institutional formations that can better serve the purposes of delivering social value?
He doesn't understand the question. What do you mean by institutional formation?
Institutional framework.
Framework, sorry.
As you know, right now the post-2015 agenda is being discussed in New York to set the new framework for sustainable development for the next 15 years. What are your expectations in this political process?
Okay, fine. Cool. Yeah, just really.
Okay. Very quick answers. In my opinion, being a social enterprise or being a for-profit enterprise differs very little from each other, and it has nothing to do with size. It has to do with the ultimate purpose of why you conduct a business and the ultimate value proposition that you insert in your business model. If your value proposition has to do with transforming a reality, and there will be conflicting moments where that value proposition will not be making optimization of profits, then you're a social enterprise. And the practice of this is very seldom have I seen a large corporation either turn or create a very successful social enterprise, but those are for different reasons rather than for why they're conceived. And the last point there is that what large corporations can do very well for social enterprises is lend them the frameworks for scaling, lend them the frameworks for efficiency and for quality of management processes that oftentimes lack in the common animals in this social transformation space.
Very good.
Collaborating with the enemy, I think, was the word here. First of all, I think we are not necessarily generating the impact we want with doomsday threats. So I think it is more a question of how painful the transition will be, and the longer we wait, the more painful it'll get, obviously. But those doomsday threats, I don't think that's a very productive way to engage with people who are not agreeing to you at this stage. Whether or how you want to collaborate with big business is, I think, an individual decision for each organization. I think there is no right or wrong here. I think there's an important role to play for everyone from the radical activist all the way through to those people who are very well connectable to mainstream businesses, because essentially you won't be able to trigger change in the existing structures if you're not able to pick up people from where they are today. So if you are overwhelming them with concepts and with questions that they don't understand, that they conceptually don't grasp at this stage, they will get very defensive and will have a hard time engaging with you. So I think there's no right or wrong here. I think you need the whole bandwidth of very provocative, radical, activist type organizations, but you also need those organizations that are capable of connecting to the status quo.
Okay, I hope I can answer the question. I think that social entrepreneurship don't need like a red tape or a different treatment from what business is as usual. And in that sense, of course, I also in favor of different approaches. So, for example, big corporations that try to, test different angles of the thing. But I don't think that the social entrepreneurship needs a different treatment for what business it's about. So that's my opinion.
Well, I hoped we would run out of time, but you added another minute, Neil. So what should I say? I mean, of course, I would expect the good results that the Millennium Goals actually delivered, the Millennium Development Goals delivered, that they actually would continue. The advantages of the Millennium Development Goals were, in my opinion, that there were a very small amount of goals, overseeable amount of goals that could be clearly communicated, and people knew on what they would be working on. What I've heard in the new goals that are currently being formulated, there are over 170 different initiatives, grouped, of course, in different groups, but 170 different initiatives. And I fear if it stays with these 170 different initiatives, that many of them won't have the impact that they are designed to address, actually. So I would wish that they could be reduced in order to create the same impact as the Millennium Development Goals had.
And finally, I'm going to say something. It was recently mentioned that 1% of the population control something like that, 50% of the wealth. And in the Millennium Development Goals 2015 and 2030, everybody's in favor of reducing poverty. We have done great in that department. Child mortality has come down, everything. You know what people are afraid of? Inequality. Brazil, China, India, South Africa, they're all in favor of reducing poverty? Yes, no problem. Inequality? Maybe not now. So the challenge is, what is your idea about inequality? Should the Millennium Development Goals have a target for the world of reducing inequality? If we think that it is not appropriate and that the world is going in the wrong direction of 1% of the population controlling more than 50% of the wealth, is there something wrong with this picture? Thank you very much.